Just days before President Obama joins other world leaders in Copenhagen for a UN climate summit, the British university at the heart of a growing scandal announced late this week that it would launch an investigation into allegations that its scientists manipulated data about global warming. The University of East Anglia's probe comes after thousands of emails between some of the world's leading climate scientists were leaked on the internet last month. The emails reveal attempts to manipulate and hide data that downplayed global warming and efforts to avoid freedom of information requests from global warming skeptics. Phil Jones, director of the university's climate research unit, announced earlier this week that he is stepping down while the university investigates the incident. Dan, so you think this is a big deal not only for global warming but also for the reputation of science in general. Why?
Well, you know, I think hard science, climate, oceanography, physics, chemistry, and the rest of it, this was the one area of life that I think most people who'd become very cynical about a lot of things.
Unlike social science or the humanities.
Or the humanities, you know, your kid can't be an English major. It was the one area that people automatically accorded respect and stature. Hard science was honest. Hard science was real. It had rigor. It had standards. And this is showing it to be about as messy as all the rest of academia. And you know, Rasmussen did a poll this week in which it revealed that 59% of Americans think scientists are falsifying data. So I'm arguing that the rest of science outside this global warming debate should step forward and defend the people who are trying to get more transparency into the process.
Kim, where do you think, what is the most disturbing thing that you have seen in these emails? Was it the peer review process? Is it trying to subvert that?
You know, actually, the emails themselves are so interesting and say so much about the way that this has been politicized. But, you know, if you talk to people, the most interesting stuff is the things that most of us can't understand, which is the modeling and the data. Remember, all of these models about what is going to happen to the Earth's temperature in the future are based on these very complex pieces of code, and the people who understand this, the statisticians, as they've gone through this, they say it is an absolute mess full of lots of fudges and little sleights of hand, all designed to kind of plump up the case for rising temperatures.
But, you know, the defenders here, Brett, say, look, fine, you know, they shouldn't have deleted emails. You should respond to Freedom of Information Act requests. You shouldn't try to exclude critics. But on the other hand, this doesn't change the underlying climate science. The Earth is still warming. The men and our technology is still making it warmer. Big deal.
Well, it is a big deal, as a matter of fact. And the reason is this.
They say no big deal.
Yeah, I understand. but the climate scientists have been telling us that these models are comprehensive, that they're reliable, that they've been able to duplicate results in a number of places. And what these emails really show is the kind of sausage factory methods that climate scientists have been using, picking data from some temperature stations, excluding data from other, massaging or evening out data going back several decades, being selective about the rest of it. What it shows is that what they claim to be consensus settled science is nothing of the kind. And what's important, to add to what Kim said, what's important is we're talking about differences, fractional differences of degrees Fahrenheit in trying to make predictions about where the climate is going to go over the course of the next 100 years. So in order to move something from, you know, plus 0.1 degree Fahrenheit to, you know, minus 0.1 is a very easy thing to do, and that's what's come out here.
All right, Kim, what about Copenhagen? It starts Monday. It was supposed to be the Kyoto 2, really the time when the world came together and united, declared this was a problem and we would all do something about it with hard caps on carbon emissions. Not going to happen, is it?
Yeah, it's unraveling, and it's not necessarily unraveling because of ClimateGate. It was happening before that, and you do have the president now going, President Obama and other world leaders, but look, the problem here is that the world is in the middle of a recession. There is a lot less enthusiasm from countries, and Western countries, and in particular developing countries like India and China, to commit themselves to some sort of a treaty that is going to severely damage their economies further. So this is is the main strike against it, but climate change is also, I mean, the climate gate fiasco is also going to play into this too.
Yeah, in Australia, you had the Senate down there reject the Prime Minister's cap and trade program. You had the U.S. Senate walking away from cap and trade, putting it off, and probably until at least 2011. Is this the Copenhagen crack-up?
Oh, I think it may be. India's foreign minister said this week that that country, joining China, would not allow itself to be bound by legally set caps. And they also demanded, if they were going to do this, they would want financing from the Western world. Both of those, I think, are showstoppers. There will never be any money transfers from the United States to India and China to do this.
But I don't think the proponents here are going to give up, Brett, because there's an awful lot of people who have a stake now in caps on carbon with investments in alternative energy.
Absolutely. There's a whole green economy. There's $100 billion worth of government investments going into this, and they're going to fight. Wow. They're going to fight for this tooth and nail. But I think they have run up against not only a political but a scientific reality that's going to be hard to overcome.
All right, Brett.